Today, if you see around, cyber crimes, abounds. Now, these persons who are creating the cyber crimes are very highly intelligent persons. They have been groomed as a part of our own education system. But what they are utilizing the gift of the education that they have taken, they are using it for their own selfish gains. These gains, mind you, is transient in nature. It's not going to last, but still they utilize for deceiving others. So if this selfishness is there, it's obviously going to bring in anarchy to the whole thing. If you look in the society, we may be seeing that we are producing very eminent doctors, very eminent lawyers, very eminent engineers. But the mool question, the basic question is, are we producing eminent good beings, human beings? The answer is all apparent. The 5 such everlasting human values, satta or truth, dharma or right action, shanti or peace, prema or love, and ahimsa, which is non-violence. Now, the prime significance of all these human values is essentially to the ability to transform or to influence a person to go towards the path of perfection. That is the contribution of being aligned to what we call the human values. Therefore, these are central to the evolution of man to attain that level of perfection. As Sri Thakur explains, sectarian conflicts in the name of dharma have arisen because sectarians have forgotten the real meaning of dharma, which does not admit any such conflict. Dharma can never accept the conflict between any faith, between any way of looking at things, which is the ultimate Godhead. Dharma is the providential flow to uphold life and growth, the urge to uphold your existence. The sect is not the same as dharma. This is important. The sect is not the same as dharma. Because somebody may follow the Anukal Chandra sect, the other may follow the Satya Sai Baba sect, the other may form something else. It is immaterial. It is the belief behind that sect which is divinity. And the belief is what we call dharma. Be attached to the way of life of the master or ideal, because dharma is embodied in the living ideal, as per Sri Sri Thakur. If you look around, if you perceive what's happening around you, you will find there's a lot of negativity that abounds in the society as of now. If you look at it, you will find discord, you will find strife, you will find hatred, a lot of mistrust, and all of these are essentially with respect to the uncontrolled, unregulated behavior of human being, and through the human being, the society at large. Now, as Thakur has mentioned, to live and grow, you must manifest human energy, and human energy has to be manifested through passions, as he calls it. And these passions could be many. It could be the desire to excel. It could be the desire to serve. It could be the ego in a person, the pride in a person, the greed in a person, the lust in a person. Nonetheless, these are the passions which create the ego for a person to move forward in terms of his existence. But when these passions become unregulated, when these passions become uncontrolled, these same passions now convert itself to obsessions. And when obsession takes hold of a person, then naturally it would generally, or maybe in a fast pace, lead to pain, destruction, and a lot of discord within the person. So therefore, in spite of whatever scientific and technological progress that we have made, we generally have a sense of lack of harmony, a sense of lack of happiness, which is normally prevailing. And therefore, as he has said, the unregulated and the uncontrolled passions lead to inferior level of existence, and that can often lead to perversion. It can also lead to destruction as well. The way to liberate oneself, or if you call it moksha, the normal nomenclature that we use, is to get rid of the confines get rid of the confines of the passion. That means, can we go beyond the bondage of passion? If we can do that, then the purpose of life would be served to a very large extent. And for doing that, Sri Sri Thakur has essentially laid stress that one has to be aligned and have complete faith in what he calls the ideal. The confines, get rid of the confines of the passion. That means, can we go beyond the bondage of passion? If we can do that, then the purpose of life would be served to a very large extent. And for doing that, Sri Sri Thakur has essentially laid stress that one has to be aligned and have complete faith in what he calls the ideal. The ideal is a person who is a repository of the entire knowledge, the entire love, the entire activity that the universe can bestow on him. And he is a person which we normally call him by prophet, a seer, or Sadguru. And only through complete dedication, complete surrender in the feet of the ideal would allow oneself to overcome the so-called negative aspects of the passion. In the process of getting aligned to the ideal, there are certain basic principles which need to be very carefully followed in life, which is known as human values. We are all aware of the human values. There are 5 human values: Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prem, and Ahimsa. And through association with the ideal, in line with practicing these human values, one can transform oneself to from an inferior being to a worthy being. Now, the start of the transformation process has to start with self. Because unless you transform yourself, there is no point in trying to transform the surroundings. There's no point in trying to transform the world around you. So the starting point of all the evolution has to be basically with respect to the self. Now, in his manifestation of the creation, the Creator, while creating his best creation, so to say, which is man, he has basically endowed man with the intellect, with the free will, with the energy to survive. And in the process, he has also blessed man with various sort of what is called the tools of enjoyment. The tools of enjoyment are nothing but complexes, as Thakurji has mentioned. And this allows basically the man to express his free will and to lead a life as per his own conscience. The ideal, as per Thakurji, is one within whom all the resources of the world, the knowledge, the love, the activity, all of them are spontaneous. That means he doesn't have to acquire these things. It is already there embedded in him. By inclination towards the ideal, all the scattered lives of man and all the diversities of the world will find a final solution. So the stress is essentially towards alignment, towards surrenderance to the ideal, as he calls it. And he is basically the God among men. Now, ideal, as we know, is also the messenger of providence or God. And through the ideal, he teaches how to serve others, how to love others. And therefore, the true love essentially can provide a means for a much better, a much more meaningful existence or life. Therefore, as it's mentioned in this slide, the ideal shows the path of regulating passions and associated energies for ensuring ideal living. The ideal represents all past prophets and comes as per the requirement of the era in which the particular ideal has been born, for the sake of fulfilling the aspirations of all the past, the present, and maybe also imbibe that inclination in the future. Though human, now fortunately or unfortunately, the ideal is born to a human being, as a human being. So obviously, being human, he will be having all the associated attributes of a human existence. That means he will be born, he will die, he will have the emotions, he will go through these iterations that is normally there. But beyond this so-called limitations, the ideal is anointed with the love of the Supreme Being. That is his greatest asset. And through that ideal, and through that asset, that is his attitude for compassion and love, he imparts knowledge of individual as well as collective existence. Now, I think Thakurji has mentioned that existence is the pivot of all isms. As Ramakrishna Paramahansa has said, Jato mot tato pot. As the number of doctrines, so is the number of path. So obviously, each doctrine could probably lead to a particular sect, it could lead to a particular way of existence, but beyond all these existence that we see in diversity, what we essentially have to visualize is the unity behind the so-called existence. And therefore, as per Thakurji, bliss comes only through the practice of love, through the practice of surrender in the feet of the ideal. Now, in the process of aligning oneself to the ideal, I personally believe that it is very important for individuals to imbibe and display what we call human values. Human values essentially are the basis of human existence. It is the basis of the society. Without that, the edifice of the society will fall down. They are eternal because they do not change with respect to demography, with respect to culture, with respect to religion, with respect to belief, with respect to country, even with respect to time. So this is something which is eternal, it is unflinching, it cannot change. Now these values are therefore essentially universal in nature. The 5 such everlasting human values, Satta or truth, Dharma or right action, Shanti or peace, Prema or love, and Ahimsa, which is non-violence. Now the prime significance of all these human values is essentially to the ability to transform or to influence a person to go towards the path of perfection. That is the contribution of being aligned to what we call the human values. Therefore, these are central to the evolution of man to attain that level of perfection. We have to believe that love is the basis of all relationships that exist today. It has to be the basis of all existence that is proclaimed by any religion of the world. And being aware of the love is the true meaning of what life is. If we can understand that, the meaning of life would be much more clearer. Love, when expressed in different contexts, reflects the significance and meaning of the other 4 values. We said that we have got truth, we have got righteousness, we have got peace, we have got non-violence as the other 4 values apart from love, as the fundamental 5 human values. Now, when love is expressed in different ways, it reflects one of these values. I will quote from Sri Satya Sai Baba. Probably most of you are aware, he's a spiritual giant of the modern era. He has mentioned that love as thought is essentially truth. Love in action is righteousness or dharma. Love as feeling is peace. And love as understanding is non-violence. So essentially, love probably is the centralmost value which permeates into all the other values. Now we must understand that each value upholds the other value. There's no distinction, but probably the very underlining principle is that of love. Let us now examine these different values to a slightly greater extent. We start with truth. The highest truth is the absolute. We all talk about the Brahman. The highest truth is the absolute. And what is truth then? Truth is that which does not get modified either by space or by time or by attributes, which we call guna. It could be Rajaguna, Tamoguna, Turiya, everything. It is never proved false by subsequent event or knowledge. So something which is absolutely infallible is truth. And through truth, this is the important part. Through truth, one experiences love, and through love, one visualizes truth. So it is practically the obverse and the reverse of the same coin. One aids the other in terms of experiencing the other. Now, what do you mean by being truthful? Truth manifests being truthful, being honest, being sincere. You act as per the integrity as per the dictates of your inner conscience. Now, what does Sri Thakur says on truth? How does he amplify what is truth? He says, that which protects, that which nurtures, that which fulfills, that which exalts on the path of existential becoming is called truth. That which does not do so is untruth, because if it does not uphold truth, it is going to perish. It will lead one towards death. It will lead one towards final extinction. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa also has expounded what is truth. He has mentioned that those who hold truth will certainly realize God. When he talks about God, he mentions that you will realize love. Truth leads to knowledge and love. Truthfulness is alone the spiritual discipline of in the Kali Yuga. He further goes on to say that there are only three mechanisms through which truth can be experienced. The first and the best mechanism is through personal experience, direct experience. Because once you have a direct experience, you will never falter, because that is the belief that you have generated through your own experience. The second best way is to learn about truth from those who have experienced truth. That means you sit at the feet of your master, the ideal, try to understand what is the truth as he manifests in his own life. And the third way is basically to get access of the scriptures, get access of information base through which truth can be understood. But surely and absolutely correctly, the best way to understand truth is through direct experience. Let's go to the next. Right action or dharma. Dharma essentially upholds and protects human existence. That is the work, that is the basic output of dharma. Right action, whether we speak, whether we act on the truth, has to emerge from the heart. And the heart is essentially the source of human consciousness. When we engage in right action, we treat others the way we wish to be treated ourselves. This is what Jesus Christ has also said. We wish to be treated with respect, with kindness, with compassion, with an understanding and appreciation of the unity of all the forms, life forms that we see around us. Practicing what you preach, doing what you say, and practicing in line with the precept essentially constitutes dharma. So what you say, you should try to put in practice. What you feel, you should try to put in practice. What is the precept, you should try to imbibe in yourself. If you do that, that is possibly the line that you are practicing dharma in your own self. As Sri Thakur explains, sectarian conflicts in the name of dharma have arisen because sectarians have forgotten the real meaning of dharma, which does not admit any such conflict. Dharma can never accept the conflict between any faith, between any way of looking at things, which is the ultimate Godhead. Dharma is the providential flow to uphold life and growth, the urge to uphold your existence. The sect is not the same as dharma. This is important. The sect is not the same as dharma. Because somebody may follow the Anukul Chandra sect, the other may follow the Satya Sai Baba sect, the other may form something else. It is immaterial. It is the belief behind that sect which is divinity. And the belief is what we call dharma. Be attached to the way of life of the master or ideal, because dharma is embodied in the living ideal as per Sri Thakur. What's peace? Until and unless we experience peace within ourselves, we cannot share peace or we cannot feel peace with others around us. This is the basic tenet of peace. You have to experience that equanimity, the mental calmness inside. Then only one would be able to perceive the mental or the peace, equanimity outside. And therefore, absolute peace manifests as inner mental equanimity in all situations. We say yoga is chitravritti nirodha, or that all the vibrations of thoughts comes down to a zero level when you are in complete union with God. That is yoga. And Essentially, yoga, when you are in that state, you are in basically a state of mental equanimity, a perfect peace, where nothing perturbs you, whether it's good, whether it's bad, nothing affects you. And that is what we call absolute peace. And overcoming excessive desires and unreasonable expectations facilitates experiencing peace. Essentially, it is the agitation inside a person which disturbs his peace. It is not something which is coming external to the person. See, when you feel that I am seeing so and so, he is such a good scholar or he is such a rich person, your internal desires probably to reach that level, if it is unfulfilled, then you feel that agitation inside. Now, the best thing is not to, look forward to such things, rather look inwards. Instead of looking outwards, if you can look inwards, the process of feeling the experience of peace will be much more facilitated. So agitation usually results from unfulfilled desires and not from external conditions. This is a general belief we make that because of our external conditions, we are not at peace. It is not true. It is because of your internal conditions which is not allowing to be at peace with you. Let's come to the next one, which is non-violence. Avoiding causing harm to anyone, be it in terms of thoughts, be it in terms of words, be it in terms of deeds, is the basis of non-violence. So therefore, non-violence essentially allows us to appreciate the diversity. It allows us to cultivate the tolerance. It allows us to perceive the unity of all forms of life and to respect all forms of life as coming from that one. Tolerance, fortitude, equanimity help in fostering ahimsa, and ahimsa in a steady way. Ahimsa is really another facet of truth or sattva. When the fundamental atmic, that is at the soul level unity and oneness of all beings with God is understood, one cannot cause pain and distress to others knowingly. So unless you have that feeling of oneness, you respect the oneness in all the diverse things that we see around, you can never cause pain, you can never cause distress to anyone knowingly. And finally, we come down to probably the most preeminent of all human values, which is peace. And as we see in the slide, the highest form of selfless love is unconditional, not expecting anything in reward. Love has no reward because love is its own reward. So if you practice love, if you practice selfless service, you cannot have any attachment to anything beyond what you are serving, what you are loving. So therefore, love has no reward, but is its own reward. Love is the source of all creation and is the binding force of all creation as well. God is the embodiment of love, as we perceive. As one can see the moon through moonlight, when the moon comes in the evening, it is essentially through the moonlight that you can see the moon. Similarly, you can see God only through the so-called moonlight or so-called rays of love. It is the love which alone can make you visualize God. Sri Thakur mentions that love from our side towards the Lord is the capital, puji. By investing this capital, one can cross the ocean of suffering and make others cross it too. Once we love the Lord, love for others and the environment will come in a most natural way. It is bound to happen. Nothing can stop it. The flow of love can never be stopped. And the best way to realize the human values and love in particular is to be ideal-centric. That means aligning oneself to the ideal, as Sri Thakur has put. And to facilitate grooming of an evolved human person, there are three things which I feel are very, very central towards the emancipation of a man to a higher being from a lower being. And that is the essence of education, shiksha, the essence of service, which is seva, and the essence of spiritualism, which is Dharmakatha, that has to be entrenched in all the values. Now, since we have been talking so long, we understand one thing, that every action, every thought that we have essentially has to recognize the divinity behind the oneness. Essentially has to perceive the oneness behind all the diversity that we see. So therefore, the realization of the unity or oneness in creation is central to every aspect of life. To safeguard the essence of human values, it is essential to realize and perceive the unity or the common underlying principles among all the diversities that exist or all the diversities that we perceive. The cardinal principles, there are 4 cardinal principles as enumerated by Sri Satya Sai Baba. There, he says, there is only one religion, the religion of love. सिर्फ एक ही religion है, वो है प्रेम की religion. There is only one caste, the caste of humanity. There is एक ही जाति है, वो है मानवता की जाति. There is only one language, and that is the language of the heart. एक ही भाषा है, वो हृदय की भाषा है. And there is only one God, and He is omnipresent. ईश्वर एक ही है, and वो सर्व विराजमान है, सर्व व्यापी है. Now, if these concepts can be assimilated in totality, then the oneness in creation can be easily perceived. And not only perceived, it can be actually be demonstrated through the acts of the human being does. What is education? What is the purpose of education? We talked about the negative tendencies, the negativity that we see around us, be it in terms of corruption, be it in terms of hatred, violence, the social and the economic lopsidedness that exists in the society at large. These are all negative tendencies. And essentially, when values cease to be a part in the scheme of education, the society ends up paying a very heavy price. If value-based system is not there as a part of our educational curricula, the society is going to pay for it. So therefore, our Gurukul system right from the beginning has been laying the fundamental stress on the respect for human values. So implementing value-based education will help to overcome the negative social tolerances or social tendencies. The present day education, unfortunately, trains what is called clever devils who help to promote selfishness and anarchy. Today, if you see around, cyber crimes, abounds. Now, these persons who are creating the cyber crimes are very highly intelligent persons. They have been groomed as a part of our own education system. But what they are utilizing, the gift of the education that they have taken, they are using it for their own selfish gains. These gains, mind you, is transient in nature. It's not going to last. But still, they utilize for deceiving others. So if this selfishness is there, it's obviously going to bring in anarchy to the whole thing. If you look in the society, we may be seeing that we are producing very eminent doctors, very eminent lawyers, very eminent engineers. But the mool question, the basic question is, are we producing eminent good beings, human beings? The answer is all apparent. Until this proper education inculcates or respects human values, this can never change. So it has to be there as a part of our education policy. The modern education emphasizes it as a means to earn a living. It is important that, yes, education should be gainfully utilized as a part of the process of living, because if you don't live, how do you serve others? That's accepted. But the important thing of education is not only earning a living, it should teach you how to live. There's a difference between how to live and how to earn a living. So if the education is not oriented towards how to live, it does not help the society. It does not help anyone. The purpose of education is therefore character building. The essence of education is to build character. The absence of education is the source of all the social malaise that we see around us. And therefore, Sri Satya Sai Baba says, the end of culture is perfection. The end of knowledge is love. The end of wisdom is freedom. And the end of education is character. Now let's look at what, Sri Satya Sai Baba as well as Sri Sri Thakur has told, what is the concept of education. The modern education forgets one thing, that the spirit or Atma is a very important part of the human being. If you look at the human being has three entities: the body, the mind, and the spirit. And education has to cater proportionately to all these, the body, the mind, and the spirit, and not to the head, so to say. So unless it has a proportionate influence on all these aspects, it's not going to bring about a change in the education. Real education, as Sri Satya Sai Baba says, that which promotes unity, that which promotes equality, that which promotes peaceful coexistence with fellow human beings. It flows from the heart. Education is not for mere living. It is for life and for more meaningful life. He further goes on to say something else, which probably is not very common. He says that it should not differentiate between the science of the material, which we'll call padartha. It should not differentiate between the science of the material and the science of the non-material, which is parartha. That means you should not treat non-material irrelevant to the material. If you don't appreciate the sweetness of Atma, if you don't merge padartha with parartha, the real essence of education will be lost. As Sri Sri Thakur puts it, mere literate learning is not education. A trained habit which includes intelligence with every consistency and makes the system habituated accordingly is education. Therefore, integral education should imbibe a seamless academic and emotional web between the spiritual and the secular aspects of education. Thakur says that it is the adjustments of the habits, it's the adjustments of the dealings which has to be illuminated in love. Through proper education, man becomes enlightened with intelligence, and adjusting his habits and his behavior in accord with the ideal helps to develop the human being. We now come down to the next important thing, which we call seva, or the selfless seva, which is the niswart seva. I will give you a small example. This we commonly see when if you see somebody hospitalized. The patient may be ringing the bell so many times on the bed. The nurse may be sitting there talking to her colleagues without responding. She has been giving a particular duty, but she's not doing it. And even if she comes very grudgingly. Now, this sort of duty without love, is deplorable. The same thing, when the nurse responds positively to the requirement of the patient with a lot of love behind, that is duty with love. So one is duty without love, which is deplorable. The duty with love is desirable. Now there is something beyond it. Imagine the nurse going on the road. He finds a person meeting with an accident. She goes, picks up the person, puts him or her in the medical institution, and so that the medical interventions can start. Now this act of love is without duty. It's beyond duty. She is not obliged to pick up the person and take. So this type of love without duty, that is divine. And if one perceives this love, then the true meaning of love will be imbibed. Our ancient Vedas proclaim, Parupakartham idam shariram, that means the human body has been given only for one purpose. And the purpose is to serve the welfare of others. As we believe, the human body is a temple of God, and God resides in the heart. All beings are visible and moving temples of a living God. Therefore, one has to have the desire to serve God through all living creatures. Life has to be filled with the ideal of doing good to others. Therefore, cultivation and practicing the spirit of selfless service develops man in the path of ideal living. Selfless service, as per Satya Sai Baba, is identifiable by two basic characteristics in a person. The first is compassion or daya, and the second is the willingness to sacrifice or tyag. Now, the willingness to sacrifice could be in terms of cash, could be in terms of kind, it could be in terms of giving time. The person should be having that spirit of sacrifice within him. Seva is to be performed with complete devotion, not expecting anything in reward. Seva has to be viewed as an act of gratitude of God, as an act, as an offering to God. And therefore, the service to man is service to God. Manav Seva is Madhav Seva. And in the process of serving, a Manav Sevak essentially graduates to a Madhav Sevak. A Manav Sevak is a person who has still self-appreciation in him. That is, Swartha is there in him. Now, as he serves others, dedicating his actions to the others, he transforms that service, and that service goes beyond Swartha and becomes Parartha. And therefore, it becomes Bahujana Hitaya and Bahujana Sukhaya, or for the good of others and for the sake of joy of others. The transformation is from Swartha to Parartha, which is the serving for others' sake, and finally to Paramartha, that is serving for the divine divinity which is latent in human being. The biggest spin-off, the biggest fallout of seva is self-emancipation, self-cleaning, self-purification. And by doing so, one gradually goes into the area or the field of an egoless domain, ahankar rahit sthan. Thus, these are some of the wise counsels of the ideals who have been born on earth from time to time, and what these have to say on seva. All of them consider seva as the highest form of spiritual practice or sadhana. Jesus Christ has said, if you love your Father in heaven, love his children as I love them and serve them. Prophet Muhammad has said, do you love the Creator? If so, love your brethren and fellow men. Otherwise, you are a liar. Lord Buddha has said, spread compassion, spread love, spread peace among men. Serve men as you would serve the Lord. That is the highest religion. And Swami Vivekananda has said, God comes to you in the garb of the blind, of the lame, the ignorant, and the ailing. Grab this opportunity to serve him through these helpless people. Now, what does Sri Sri Thakur says? The reward for seva essentially is the evolution of a person from a lower instinct to a person who is much more emancipated and equipped with the intellect and love. In his 81 years in life, through all his actions, through all his thoughts, he has clearly demonstrated that serving others benefit the sevak to grow and reach greater potential. Instead of struggling hard to control the passions, he says they can be channelized for the service of the ideal, wherein passions gets adjusted for the positive outputs. Serving the ideal comes out of service to others, and this is the proof of true spiritual life. And therefore, he summarizes, nothing succeeds like success through compassionate, honest service that does not drag down others. We come down finally to spirituality. What is spirituality? What is spiritualism? The practice of spirituality is spiritualism. And that can trigger a transformation which is quite significant in life. And Sri Sri Thakur defines spirit as what respires to exist is spirit. That means what breathes, just give me 2 minutes. What breathes to exist is spirit. What has the courage to exist is spirit. What has the hope to exist is spirit. So it is not only the animate things, it is also the inanimate, which has the courage, which has the hope to survive. That is spirit. And what maintains the person to breathe is spiritualism. We come down to the common dichotomy between science and spirituality. Dr. Sellers Collins, who is basically a very noted American physicist and geneticist, who has discovered a number of genes which has led to the identification of diseases, he has lamented that one of the greatest tragedies of our times is the impression that has been created that science and religion have to be at war with each other. It is not true. It's a feeling that we have. It is not true, because Albert Einstein and Isaac Newton, the two most, physical scientists of this world, have both said that science and spirituality can never clash. They can only complement each other. Because science without religion is lame, religion without science is blind. And Isaac Newton says, as a blind man has no idea of colors, so we have no idea of the manner in which God perceives and executes his will. So essentially there is no dichotomy. It is obverse and reverse of the same coin. Both are trying to explore truth on different levels, one on the spiritual level, the other on the physical level. So with these, let's conclude saying that essentially human values is the sustaining force on the edifice on which society as well as divinity is built. Love is the preeminent human value. Adherence and complete surrender to the ideal, as per Sri Thakur, is the way to attain noble heights. The role of true education, selfless service, and exalted spiritualism is going to shape a true human being. The contribution of education is essentially for character building. The contribution of selfless service is for cleansing one ego. And the contribution of spiritualism is to develop purity of mind. If these can be developed, the march towards a human being will be much more easier. And the pursuit of truth through science and spirituality would complement each other. With these words, I seek the blessings of Sri Thakur Anukal Chandraji, so that he bestows his blessings on all of you. Thank you. Thank you very much.